ABC's Josh Haskell, Lincolnway Energy in Nevada, Iowa. Not on the campaign trail today, but kind of on the campaign trail is the issue of ethanol and renewable fuels. As there's a truck carrying corn going right by me right now. Just so you know where I am, I'm in an ethanol plant, and as I was saying, that issue of ethanol has become one of the centerpiece issues of especially the GOP race here in Iowa, and we are right now 19 days from the caucus. These trucks behind me, they're full of corn, and they're carrying that corn from farms in this part of Iowa within a 30-mile radius of this plant. That corn, we're going to follow it. It goes to this ethanol plant, and I want to bring in Eric Branstead. He's with an advocacy group, America's Renewable Future. He's the executive director. He's going to tell us a little bit about where we are, what's happening here, and why ethanol has become such a big issue. So, Eric, live on ABC Digital, thanks for talking to us. And
thank you.
Tell us, this truck behind me carrying corn, what will happen to it at this plant?
So it's going to be turned in, it's going to go into this building behind us, it's going to get emptied, it's going to be turned into ethanol and turned into food, as well as the other co-products we'll learn about today.
And quickly for our viewers, what is ethanol?
Ethanol is gasoline, is fuel. It is derived from the starch from the corn, the white part of the corn. It is derived, and that's turned into to a high octane, high quality fuel that's put into our autos.
And Eric, why don't you tell us why ethanol has become such an important issue, especially in this election, 19 days from the caucus?
Well, you are looking at one of Iowa's biggest and best industries, and this has grown as a value-added agriculture. And we'll learn about that throughout the day, what that value-added agriculture means. But what it really means is, to Iowa, it means 73,000 jobs to the state, and it means $5 billion in wages. Not to mention, Iowa is now a net exporter of energy, not an importer like we used to be in the 80s.
So you heard that, 73,000 jobs what ethanol's responsible for in the #1 ethanol producing state here in Iowa, 19 days out from the caucus. Eric and I and the rest of our team here at Lincolnway Energy, we're going to take you on this golf cart. We're going to go inside the plant, let you know how this works, and hopefully by the end of this you guys have a better idea of why ethanol has become such an important issue to this election. So come on board, guys. And the other Eric, come sit with me. Let's take a ride onto the plant.
The whole operation starts here with the delivery of corn.
And Eric, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and Lincolnway Energy?
So my name is Eric Hackmiller. I've been at Lincoln Energy since 2013. I've been processing grain one way or the other for about 28 years now. Been in the wet milling business, been in the soy crushing business, and now I'm in the ethanol business. Ethanol is an incredibly elegant processing industry. We're able to bring corn in here and extract through distillation the alcohol out and leave the protein and the fiber for sale into animal feed. It's a blast. I love that.
ABC's Josh Haskell here with Eric Hackmiller. We're on the back of a golf cart right now, and we're going into the Lincolnway Energy plant to show you how corn from those trucks right over there at this plant using, you said, natural gas is turned into gasoline. And tell us why ethanol is good for the environment and is good for America.
Well, ethanol comes from corn. The corn is a renewable resource, very plentiful here in Iowa. The CO2 that's floating around the air gets absorbed into the corn. We process the corn here, breaking out the starch, using enzymes to break those starches down to sugar, and then we use yeast to turn that sugar into alcohol. When that sugar is turned into alcohol, those yeasts also release CO2, which we capture in a facility right on the other side of the plant. They compress it, reuse that CO2 one more time as a refrigerant in a large meat packer on the other side of town, and that CO2 is then returned to the air. So essentially, the CO2 that we return to the air has been in the air, some months ago when the corn was grown.
And Eric, why don't you tell us what we're seeing right now as we drive by this pretty large plant. What is that over there? Is that corn coming out?
Well, what you see there is a product that we call modified DDGs. It's about 50% moisture. It's an animal right now we are going into the DDG barn. DDGs are dried distillers grains with solubles. The dried distillers grains are animal feed that's used in cows, chickens, and pigs, really the world around. We load about 80% of our product into rail cars, and we ship them all over the world.
So it's all happening right here in Nevada. That's a train behind me that says Lincolnway Energy. So as many plants here in Iowa and around the country, they have close proximity to rail tracks, so they can bring in the product in and of course bring the product out. This is actually a road on the plant's property. And behind me, you can just see those corn trucks that are lining up from the farms, taken to this plant, and then loaded onto these trains. But let's continue to follow the group as we go inside right now and kind of see exactly what's happening. Eric, take us in. Where are we?
So this is what we call the DDG barn. This is where all the products in the corn that is not starch end up. And what you see here is mountains of really high nutritious, high protein, good fiber product that is ideal for feeding of cows, chickens, and pigs.
It smells like bread, kind of.
It is a very nice smelling industrial process. So this material we load out from here and we put into either rail cars or trucks. It goes into rail cars. We generally ship it to California, to Mexico, to large cattle places. If it goes into trucks, it either gets loaded in containers and shipped to China, or we ship it to the local market. You see that it's a very fine, granular product, ideal for feeding of animals. The big misconception about ethanol is that corn comes into an ethanol plant and 100% gets turned into ethanol and nothing is left over. This is the nutritional part of the corn, which we then able to feed to cows, chickens, and pigs.
So that's the whole process here. Corn comes in, it's used to make ethanol, and then what's left over right behind us. What would you call that again?
Dried distillers grains with solubles, or DDGS.
And then that's fed to animals on the farms here in Iowa, and I would imagine throughout the country.
All through the country.
So where are we headed next, Eric?
All right, we're going to go around the corner here is where corn is delivered to the facility. I just saw some corn trucks come in so we can see some corn getting dumped.
Great. ABC's Digital taking a tour today of Lincolnway Energy and an ethanol plant here in Iowa. Thanks for coming along with us. And as the tour continues, it's Eric Hackmiller, Eric Branstead with the Ethanol Advocacy Group in the state. And Eric, I want to tell you, what candidates so far are strong on ethanol and who's not?
You know, really, all of the candidates have come a really long way. And since coming to Iowa and being in Iowa, they've spent time with us and they've learned all about this great and important industry to Iowa. All but two candidates are on our good list, or have gotten on our report card, put on the good list. All the candidates, all the Republican, all the Democrat candidates, except for two, Senators Cruz and Senators Paul.
And if you guys just heard that, Republicans and Democrats. So that's something that's rather interesting about the ethanol issue, that it is a bipartisan issue, that Democrats running for president, and especially here in Iowa, I know in the state government, it's become an issue that people on both sides have come together. So why are these two Republicans, Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, holding out?
You know, they really have not taken the time to come to one of these plants and really spend time with us and industry leaders like Eric to really learn about how important this is to Iowa, how important this is to Nevada, and how important it is to the economy.
And so, what do you think Ted Cruz's answer or reason is for wanting to phase out renewable fuels in 5 years? I understand you said that he hasn't taken the time, but he, you know, is someone that is against subsidies. And that is obviously a stance that he's had for many years and what he stands for, and Rand Paul too. So how do you change that?
You know, subsidies for ethanol ended December 31st, 2011. So there are no more government subsidies. What is most important is that where Senator Cruz has not delivered is he all of a sudden comes to Iowa and says 3.5 weeks before that he is for breaking the blend wall and for doing these things, but he certainly hasn't been able to talk to leaders and folks that know that it takes the renewable fuel standard in order to break that blend wall. And it gets complicated when it gets into the numbers. he's trying to have it both ways, and that's not working.
And Eric, do you think that Ted Cruz's stance on ethanol may be part of the reason why he dropped a little bit in that Des Moines Register poll in Iowa, which was released this morning, where he doesn't have a 10-point lead against Donald Trump, only a few-point lead?
Absolutely. I mean, we found out on his bus tour here in Iowa last week, at I believe every single one of his events, there was a farmer, there was a plant employee, there was someone that was going up to him and asking him about it, and that's that organic grassroots operation that we put together that is truly working. And you're going to find that out. We found that out in today's new poll. I think you'll find that out here in the polls coming up as the closer we get to the caucus.
So let's continue the tour. Eric, where are we headed?
This is the corn dump area. So we use about 20 million bushels of corn a year here to make ethanol. It's stored in these silos. They're about 250,000 bushels apiece. All the corn is local, from the local farmers, local co-ops in the area. It comes in by truck. Stuff over here. It's dumped into a pit down here.
So these are those same trucks that we saw earlier that we followed now, and now they're inside this building, this barn, and tell us what happens inside this barn.
So the trucker will pull up over this grate over here, to this grate over here, and they will open the bottom of the truck, and these are bottom fed trucks. The corn will drop out. There's a conveyor underground, which will take it up to the silos up above, and it'll wait for us to process.
So how can we show our viewers the grain?
You'll see it come right, follow me. Truck driver will come out here, he'll open these slide gates, the corn will fall out.
There's the corn, folks. And how much corn is that?
Dave, how much corn is that? 1,000 bushels.
So Dave just said 1,000 bushels per truck. So right behind me, as you can see, the corn is coming out of this truck, 1,000 bushels per truck that comes from farms in this part of Iowa, 30,000 or 30 square miles within this plant. They come here, it gets dumped there, and we're going to follow the process through the plant. So where do we go next, Eric?
All right, well, from here, it's taken up to the silos, and then it gets ground into a meal, a very fine powder. That powder is then wetted, the enzymes are added, and sending over to fermentation. So let's hop in the cart, we'll drive over to Fermentation Alley, huh?
You're watching ABC Digital, taking a tour of an ethanol plant here. I think we're going to end up going this way to see the next process.
So it doesn't flow particularly well, but this is the end point for ethanol. It ends up in tanker cars like this, and we ship most of our ethanol west. Most of our ethanol ends up in places like Arizona, Las Vegas, warmer places than here.
So this is not ethanol to only be used at gas stations throughout Iowa. This is ethanol that will be used throughout the country. And as I mentioned earlier, Iowa, the #1 producer of ethanol in the United States. Nebraska, the next state, doesn't even come close to what is done here in Iowa, correct?
So absolutely. The ethanol is stored in tanks here. When it's here, it's 200 proof. It does have a denaturant in it, so it's a little bit of gasoline that we by law have to pour into every gallon of ethanol we produce, and it's so that the ethanol cannot be consumed. But until we put that gasoline in there, what we do here is the same thing that a vodka manufacturer or a whiskey manufacturer would do. To that point, though, we make a very pure product.
So we're going to take a quick break here at ABC Digital to get reset for the second leg of the tour, but just to show you behind me, that's where those trucks were coming in. And over here behind me, that's where the ethanol is stored once it's finished. And then also behind me, the trains that the ethanol will go inside and is taken, as you just heard, throughout the country. So stay with us. ABC's Josh Haskell in Nevada, Iowa at an ethanol plant.